Hey, gorgeous people. I'm Alexandra Blair of Nine Lives Astrology. Welcome to my Monday morning coffee astrology chat show where we talk about everything happening under the sun before I have to get up and make a second cup of coffee. As always, we are going to pull astrology out of the dusty old textbooks and actually breathe some life into it with art and archetypes and conversation and stories and fragments of ideas and run on sentences and some gentle theatrics and incorporating plenty of the personal mythologies you're already living. Dare I note that this week's astrology, I'm scared to even say it, but it looks potentially somewhat quite calm this week and next week after a month of tangled squares and retrogrades and fixed sign T squares. The sky is finally like exhaling, and so am I. We've got a quieter week ahead. Venus entering Aries, kissing Neptune on the way in the door. Pluto will station retrograde in Aquarius. So if you feel like the astro weather has been a little bit of an unceasing gauntlet for you through this winter, now is the start of that feeling where maybe it's time to unclench just a little bit, just a little bit. Let's get into it. If you've been thinking about booking a reading, I can definitely help with that. So we can dig into all of the astrology that I talk about on this show and so many more awesome topics in a one-on-one session. Now is a great time to book. I'm booking out for June and I'm taking some time off this May. So spots are kind of limited, not in the false scarcity way. I'm literally taking 2 weeks off, so spots are limited. You can find all of those offerings at ninelivesastrology.com. I am currently developing some new offerings too, so stay tuned for that. Okay, first things first, our refractions for the week. Thank you for everybody who comments on my YouTube videos and sends me stuff on Instagram and to my email. It really means a lot to me when I see you guys do that, and I love getting into those weird liminal emotional corners together. The Saturn Venus stuff this week, especially, has been so real and poignant. And I have appreciated every single one of those messages I've received. First things first, with Saturn Venus, I used Pride and Prejudice as a reference point for this a few weeks ago. And as it turns out, Pride and Prejudice is celebrating its 20th anniversary and it is doing a theatrical re release this week. So, of course, I went to see it live in a theater with my roommate. And let me tell you, if I could pay to see every movie in a theater full of intrigued and interested and attentive women, I would do that because every moment, every glance, every hand flex, if you know, you know, was met with a chorus of gasps or exhales. It was a very special experience that I will not soon forget that I did actually on the Venus Saturn conjunction. It was an all-timer. I'm going to share a couple more insights about that on my Instagram, so stay posted. A couple of you had some really sweet things to say about friendship and friend love on last week's video. I am Franny says, I often say friendship is my religion. I couldn't agree more that our friends' love for us can remind us how to treat ourselves and what we deserve. Signed, Venus in Gemini in the 11th. Thank you so much for commenting that. I am Franny. I did look back at that video and I thought it was so chart ruler and Aquarius of me to say, I don't want to get emotional and then proceed to be completely stoic and emotionless. But I have cried on this topic of friendship at least 7 or 8 times in the past month. So know that I am truly sitting in my feelings on this one. And I really appreciated everybody's comments just saying, I'm here with you. Made me feel really good in the way that friends do. All right, Readings with Rachel also says, always love your insights. I'm celebrating Venus in her exaltation today by going and getting a full body scrub to shed all of the dead skin and selecting a few roses from my garden for my altar. This is so beautiful, and I love these beautiful, easy, authentic ways that you guys have been sharing with me that you integrate the planetary archetypes and energies into your daily life. It can be this simple. I'm going to go into my garden and I'm going to cut some roses and put them on my altar. Or in Rachel's case as well, dedicating something like a skin treatment that you maybe were already going to do, but thinking about it and sort of dedicating it in a devotional way to this energetic archetype of Venus is really beautiful. Lastly, I posted a story on my Instagram about Mars Pluto and how this was playing out for you guys. And I got some really, really intense and beautiful things in my inbox about this. I wanted to share a few of them with you guys here. So in regards to my question, how is Mars Pluto showing up for you? Virgo rising here, learning to relate to rage without suppressing it or burning the house down. Relatable, my Virgo rising friend. Time for final action or action with finality. Processing my fear of showing up authentically, transforming my standards, reinvesting my power/time in different places and spaces, evolve or perish. Some power struggles I never saw coming. You can pause here to read them. Talking about power struggles, evolution, ambition, the ways that we need to relate to our anchor, whether it's justified or not justified. These are all super on point themes for the Mars Pluto opposition that's happening square the sun in Taurus this week. All right, let's get into the transits for the week. We have a really short list, and this list is actually longer than it would be on a normal week because I've included Venus's ingress into Aries and Pluto stationing retrograde in Aquarius. And that's because we really only have one discrete transit this week, and it is Venus conjoining Neptune at 1 degrees of Aries on May 2nd. But to do that, she has to enter Aries. And then additionally, I've included Pluto stationing retrograde in Aquarius, and I'll talk about why a little later in this video. Throughout the week, the moon moves from mid-Taurus, where it is exalted, all the way through mid-Leo, stopping for some dignity in Cancer as well. So this is a nice time for the moon. Overall, May starts with fewer moving pieces, which is honestly a gift. Whenever I'm planning for the astrology of the coming years, I always look at these months and I think to myself, like, oh, it's a boring, slow little month. And then when these months arrive, I always look in the mirror and I have these dark circles under my eyes and I'm exhausted and my hair is frizzy. And I say to myself, thank the fucking gods. I needed this break. And that's exactly what's happening this month. We really start the month with some kind, beautiful little astrology. The moon is in Taurus to kick us off, and Venus is still in Pisces. This is such a beautiful time of the year. It marks sort of the halfway point between the spring equinox and the summer solstice, and there are so many awesome cultural traditions to celebrate the beginning of May or true heavy spring. So if you follow the wheel of the year, blessed Beltane to you. Happy Walpurgis night, happy Calanmai, happy May Day. I hope you guys are able to get outside and have a bonfire on my behalf because I'm a sad, sad, dense, urban city center apartment girl right now. Honestly, the beginning of this week feels a little bit like the sweaty, sexy bonfires at some big May Day celebration. So I'm thinking of these pagan festivals of the distant past, and I am thinking about the time when the sun goes down and all of the youngsters go to sleep, but the bonfires are still burning, and there's dancing, and there's music, and there's drinks, and it feels so sweaty, sexy. That really is what leads us into the Venus-Neptune. So we start with this sort of beginning of the week before Venus enters Aries. It feels a little more above board and a little less explicitly lusty. But once Venus enters Aries, it gets a little feral and it gets a little primal, a place where she's not typically super comfortable, but instead of getting all like huffy and impulsive right away, there's this meeting with Neptune. And it's a little bit like showing up to a party and not knowing anybody and feeling a little bit uncomfortable, a little bit out of your context, but locking eyes with someone across the room who just gets it. There's this flicker of connection, maybe a little bit of fantasy, maybe a little bit of intrigue and excitement. It might be tender, it might be a little delusional. If you're like me, you might invent an entire backstory for this person and your shared future together that you then forget about when literally nothing happens. Now, we hear this word a lot for Neptune, delusional. And let me tell you, when I meet with clients who are asking me, do I need to check my delusion? Or maybe, dear reader, you are thinking to yourself right now, delusional. Oh, I'm going to have to check myself and make sure I don't get too delusional. Somehow I can say for damn near certain that if it is you who are thinking that, it is not you who need be thinking that. I can almost certainly write you a hall pass if you are thinking this, because it is never the people who are checking themselves and reflecting and journaling and wondering if they are being delusional who are actually sort of being delusional. On the other hand, if it's been a decade or more since you checked in with yourself, maybe this message is for you. If you are not typically in the process of self-reflection and journaling and challenging your assumptions about the world, maybe this message is for you. Maybe do check a little bit of your delusion on this day. So there's a couple other days that I want to point out. And because we're so light on transits, I'm going to really drive this home. How is this Venus-Neptune contact related to all of this Aries stuff that's going on? These early degrees of Aries are going to be super important. They have already been activated by Venus retrograde, Mercury retrograde, and an eclipse in Aries, all of that happening in March of 2025. Now there is a little bit of buildup with what's happening with Saturn and Neptune both ingressing into Aries. They will come within 1 degree of each other this summer in June and July, and then retrograde back into Pisces. But in February of 2026, they will conjoin together at 0 Aries, literally the start of the zodiac. They only make this conjunction every 36 years. So, this is a very important symbolic new beginning that I don't think can be overstated. I want to be really crystal clear about this because this rhetoric of stepping into a new era and symbolic new beginning, I mean, we hear this every month when there's a new moon. So, really, what am I talking about? I'm saying a thing that happens every 36 years that has, to the knowledge of the researchers that be, never happened before at 0 degrees Aries, is happening, Saturn Neptune conjunction, at the beginning of the zodiac. Now, that's a really important and symbolic new beginning at a scale that is very different to any old new moon that you might look at throughout the year. So I'm not being cliche, I'm just being real with you. This is a very, very important symbolic date. If there is something you have going on in this Aries part of your life, whichever house it may be, and let me know in the comments below how this has been playing out for you, this is an actual working window that is coming together here. We talked earlier in the year on this channel about how Neptune alone in Aries is a good time for dreaming and building something through dreaming. Saturn's going to come in at the end of May and ask us to get serious about some of that dreaming that we've been doing. So, this is an important working window for this symbolic new beginning that you might choose doesn't relate to you and isn't relevant at all. But if you are interested, think about it this way. There has been revisiting, renegotiating, realigning yourself in this Aries part in March and April. Starting in May, something new is going to be building there. We're actually going to be working and building something new in that Aries part. And there's a symbolic new beginning that's lining up for February 20th. 2026. Okay, I promise I'm not going to say the phrase symbolic new beginning anymore in this episode. So, this is a timeline you can be mapping out and using if you are interested. This is work I really love doing for myself, for my friends, for my clients. And there are 2 dates that I want you to think about in relation to this week's Neptune and Venus contact. So, the first date would be February 1st, when Venus and Neptune made contact, conjunction, at 27 degrees Pisces. What was going on? I heard from so many people that they had a really nice weekend. They had something really romantic going on or really sweet. And the second date would be April 16th, in which there was a Mercury Neptune contact at 0 degrees Aries. And I heard from so many people about this date that there was a really unexpected surge of clarity and understanding and downloads coming in from this Aries part of the chart. So think about these two and think about how they tie into what's going on with you this week. We have this exact conjunction Venus-Neptune that happened in a different sign, Pisces, on February 1st. And we have a different conjunction that happened in this exact area, Mercury-Neptune at 0 Aries, on April 16th. Okay. Pluto stationing retrograde on May 4th is another big shift, although it might really just feel like background static. These outer planets, or in this case, not planets, spend nearly half the year retrograde. And it's not something that I typically announce or even really pay attention to for myself, if I'm being totally honest. But we're light this week on discrete transit, so I'm going to go ahead and dig into this because this is Pluto's first full retrograde in Aquarius. It's not going back to Capricorn. So if something's been brewing at the edges of your consciousness, it might begin to surface now, not with some force and not in an explicit way, but there will definitely be some of that Plutonian gravity to it. I want you to think about this timeline as well, because Pluto entered Aquarius in March 2023, and Pluto's ingress into a new sign natally is very often associated with a breakdown phase. So think about which house Aquarius rules in your chart and think about if there's been mounting pressure or maybe a breakdown phase that has brought you to some kind of rock bottom or some kind of dire place in this part of your chart. I want to read you guys an excerpt of a book that I adore, and it is Rob Hand's Planets in Transit. If you've taken any of my workshops or you've booked a transit session with me as a client, you will know that I love this book as a desk reference, particularly for some of these trickier and slower moving transits like Pluto's 19-year stay in Aquarius. Rob writes, "It's extremely important that you recognize the inevitability of Plutonian change, which is built into the very structure of things and cannot be prevented. You should not try to prevent it because it is a necessary stage in your evolution. All your attempts to prevent it will do is force the energies to build up until they are explosive, and then those inevitable changes come about disastrously." Now, I don't know about you, but that really sums up some of my Plutonian experiences that I've had in my life and definitely seems to track for some of the client experiences that I've witnessed. So, with this first Pluto retrograde fully exclusively in Aquarius, I personally am going to be thinking about how I can lean into Pluto's requests for change and places where maybe I still have a little bit of that resistance in my arms and shoulders and posture, that I can actually just let go and lean into what is being asked of me in this part of my life. We've now reached the part of the show where I talk about how I, as a pagan animist astrologer, am going to be using the energetics of this week. Personally, at the start of the week, I am really leaning into that softness. Venus still in Pisces, the moon in Taurus on April 28th, 29th. That's really sweet. That's just like, and if you can, I would recommend doing something really slow, luxuriate, do something Venusian that doesn't have an outcome or a goal or productivity attached. I'm probably just going to be a calm girly on these days. When Venus moves into Aries, I'm going to be paying a little more attention to where I am feeling that boldness. This Aries stuff has been bringing up a lot for me, and I am trying my best to navigate that with grace and poise rather than let it activate by trine, my Leo stellium, which is fiery and noisy and active. So I'm leaning into this Venus Neptune contact, and I'm going to be using it for its most exciting and letting my brain off the anti delusion harness just for one day, just to get excited about some of the things that I'm dreaming into possibility. April 16th was also a really powerful day of clarity for me. So I think I'm going to be revisiting some of what I looked at on that day and seeing if I can't bring a little more optimism and love and grace and forgiveness for myself back to some of those thoughts. I'm also having an astrocartography reading from a very lovely astrocartographer, and I will be posting more about that on Instagram and possibly talking about it here on the show after it's done with her permission. So that Saturn Neptune stuff happening in my Aries fourth house, that's part of it. My partner and I have been thinking about relocating, so we are really excited to get some insights there. I will say this would be a beautiful week to rewatch something romantic, maybe slightly devastating or bruising of the heart, something where the characters don't get what they want, but they manage to grow from it, or what they get instead of what they wanted is actually better for them. Something like that. So here's my question I want to leave you with for this week. Where is Pluto retrograding in your chart? Is there anything you want to commit to now to letting go of your need for control? Is there anything you want to surrender to the trash compactor that is Pluto and get rid of? For me, Pluto is in my second house currently with my chart ruler Saturn. Obviously, I have a lot of complicated ideas around personal values and justice and identity and what's right that I am hashing through. You know what that sound is. I've reached the end of my coffee, and so I must also have reached the end of my show. If something in this video stirred something in you or spoke to you, please leave me a comment. It really means the world to me, and I read every single one, and I try to reply. You can book a session with me at 9livesastrology.com. I'm taking some time off this month, as I mentioned, so don't wait. I am already booking for June, and I'll see you next Monday. Until then, I hope you guys dream up some fiery little dreams and always take the long way home. Cheers.